State your name for the record and spell first and last name for the the court reporter.
Clint Bobo, CLINT BOBO.
See,
Friends, we met your mom, we met your dad, we've heard about your sister. When I ask you questions, I want you to keep your voice up so I can hear you back here, okay?
Well,
Can you do that?
yes,
Maybe a little bit louder if you know.
yes.
Old, what
I'm 32 years old.
kind of job do you have now?
I am a social worker.
Do you have a family now?
I do.
Wife?
I have a wife.
No,
No kids.
it's you and your wife.
That's right.
We're going back 6-7 years. We're going back to April 13th, 2011. Where were you living back then?
At that time, I lived at 681 Swan Johnson Road, Darden, Tennessee.
Who else lived there?
It was me, my sister Holly, my dad Dana, and my mom Karen.
You're a little older than Holly, is that right?
About 5 years.
Were you working back then?
I was.
Where were you working?
Well, I had a part-time job at nursing homes, and I worked at 3 different nursing homes at that time.
Were you going to school?
I was.
Where were you going to school?
University of Tennessee at Martin.
Working, going to school, but at the same time, a 25-year-old, right?
That's right.
Probably every bit of it.
Yes.
That morning, April 13th, 2011, was it a morning that you thought a lot about?
Yes, I have.
Is it a morning that you've been questioned a lot about?
Yes.
By your friends?
Yes.
By your family?
Yes.
By law enforcement?
Yes.
Attorneys?
Yep.
Well, we're going back to it again. That morning, how'd you wake up? When'd you wake up?
I woke up to hearing the sound of our house dog, Rascal, barking.
A dog.
He is a Shih Tzu. Yeah. He's pretty small. He barks pretty often.
That woke you up.
Yes.
And what'd you?
Went back to sleep.
All right. So you're woken up by a dog barking, but you didn't get out of bed.
No.
So you wake up, dog barking, stop barking.
Well, yeah, I waited. I guess I was awake for a few seconds, and then I tried to go back to sleep, but maybe he stopped barking at some point in time, then he started barking again.
And did something wake you up again?
Just the sound of him continuing to bark.
Okay. So the little dog still barking.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
I decided I would get up, that he probably wasn't going to stop barking, so I would go ahead and get up and go to try to find out what he was barking at.
What did you expect?
I expected something to see a utility vehicle outside, like a water meter reader or an electric meter reader or something, or a delivery truck.
You expected something normal.
Yeah.
Normally the dog barks if there's something like that.
Yes, he does. Anytime someone comes up, or even if there's a loud vehicle sometimes that travels down the road, he would bark.
And what'd you do? Where'd you go?
Well, I got up and I walked into the den, at that time I walked through the kitchen into like the foyer, and I looked out the front windows that were next to the front door.
Well, there's some side windows.
Yeah, side lights is what we call those.
You'll say that fast, it sounds like satellites.
That's right.
Side light.
Side light.
I'm going to show you, Clint, what's been previously marked as Exhibit 19 and 20. It's going to be behind you.
Okay.
Is that the foyer you're talking about?
It is.
If I show you Exhibit number 20, I'm not good at that. What do you see in Exhibit 20?
That's the foyer area with the front door open.
All right, you got the front door, you got those side lights.
That's right.
You looked out there, what'd you see?
I didn't see anything. I didn't see any vehicles. Didn't see anything.
Okay, what'd you do next?
Well, I looked out. I walked over to the window that overlooks the attached garage or carport, and as I was approaching that, I didn't look at anything really, but as I was approaching that window, I heard voices in the.
Let me interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you a few times.
Okay.
Is this a window that is in the house, or is it in a door?
It's in the house.
Okay, so there's a window in the back of the house.
Yes.
That looks into the carport, or looks out at the detached garage.
It looks into the carport attached to the house.
So you're looking out of an interior window into the carport.
That's right.
Is that right?
That's right.
Are you able to see?
Well, I raised the blinds slightly and saw the silhouette of 2 individuals underneath that window knelt down.
Was it dark in that carport, or was the light?
It was fairly dark.
There were blinds down in the window.
Yes.
Did you pull them all the way up? Or just,
No, I very slightly opened one of the blinds enough where I could see out.
Why don't you do it like that?
Because I heard the voices out in the carport.
Now, this time in the morning, you've just woken up, right?
That's right.
What information do you have? Did you know where your mom was?
I assumed that she was at school, at work.
You assumed.
Yeah.
You didn't see her leave.
No.
Did you know where your dad was?
I assumed that he was also at work.
But you didn't see him leave.
No.
Did you know where your sister was?
No.
So you're fresh out of sleep to a barking dog. The front of the house, there's nothing. So you walk to the back.
Right.
And you look in this dark hallway.
Right.
Maybe you were describing it, you saw like the silhouettes of people. Did you see these silhouettes or did you hear voices first?
I was going by what I heard, and I was going by the voices. I heard the voices first, and then raised the blind to try to look out the window.
Describe the voices to me.
Well, it was a male's voice and a female's voice.
Did you actually recognize either of the two voices?
At first, I didn't recognize either voice, but as I listened for just seconds, I could recognize my sister's voice and what I thought was her boyfriend Drew's voice.
Why did you think it was her boyfriend Drew's voice?
Well, because he was the only male figure in Holly's life besides myself and my dad.
So you were making an assumption.
That's right.
Did you know Drew very well?
Yes.
Y'all were good friends, actually, right?
Yes.
Hunting together?
We did.
Ride four-wheelers together?
We did.
And you assumed it was his voice.
Yes.
How were the two voices talking to each other? In what manner were they talking?
The male voice sounded somewhat aggravated, and the female voice would just answer back and sounded upset.
Did you actually hear the words that were being spoken?
No, I wasn't able to make out what they were saying.
So were you going by the tone or volume or something like that?
That's right. That's right.
And is all this happening over the course, because we talked about it here, and it sounds like it's happening over the course of minutes, but in fact it's happening over the course of what?
All of this is taking place just within a few minutes.
These voices, how long do you listen to them?
Well, I would say just less than minutes. I would say seconds.
So you're fresh out of sleep.
Yeah.
The barking dog, nothing out front, looking out to the carport, and you hear these voices
That's right.
for seconds.
Yes.
And what do you see when you lift up the blind a little bit?
I see the silhouette of two individuals knelt down underneath that window.
Can you see their faces?
No.
Can you tell which one the male is and which one the female is?
By their voices, mostly I can.
And what do you mean by that?
The female voice that I heard, which I've later recognized as Holly's voice, was on the right-hand side. And the male voice, who I thought was Drew, was on the left-hand side.
What happens next?
Try to call my mom, and
Try to call your mom.
I was going to ask her if Holly didn't have school today because I knew that she was still at the house.
Well, let me ask you, if you assumed that male voice may be Drew, and he's a friend of yours, why didn't you open up that door and check?
I don't know.
Have you thought about that question?
Not really.
You could have opened up the door, right?
That's right.
Were Drew and Holly having any sort of relationship problems that they'd be fighting in the morning?
Not that I was aware of.
Do you get involved in their relationship problems?
No, I stay out of...
Is that something you'd want to walk into?
No.
Until you try to call your mom.
Yes.
And why do you try to call your mom?
I was going to ask her if Holly didn't have school that day.
Were you able to reach your mom?
I was unable to reach her on the first try.
Were you able to get through to her?
Immediately after the phone call that I made, I also text her, call me ASAP.
Okay. Did you get a response?
She called back about 20 seconds after I sent the text.
So this is all still happening really fast.
Yeah.
As we're waiting for her to text back or call back or whatever it is, what are you doing?
I'm trying to kind of listen to the voices.
During this time, are you still thinking it's Drew and are you still thinking it's Holly?
Yes,
Does your mom reach back to you?
she does. She calls me right back after I sent that text message.
What do you tell her?
I ask her, did Holly not have school today because her car is still here?
Did you tell her about the voices?
I don't recall.
What did she say when you asked about Holly not having school?
She said, yes, she has school.
She actually had a test even.
Yeah, I was unaware of that at that time.
Is that how the phone call with you and Karen, the first one, ends? Or do y'all talk some more?
Well, I forgot to mention, I did see Holly's car in the garage whenever I looked out the window.
When you look out the window, the carport's right there.
Yes.
These figures would have been right there.
Yes, right underneath the window.
And her car would have been right there.
Right there underneath it as well.
So you heard the voices, you saw the car. You asked your mom, did Holly not have school? No, Holly does have school.
She has school.
Well, what next?
The reason I ask is, at some point, briefly before this, Holly's car wouldn't start one morning. I think the battery was dead or something, so we had to, I guess, my dad did it or somebody had to, jump the car off to get it started. So I thought that maybe it just didn't start and someone was coming to pick her up.
Sure. But what'd your mom say? I mean, what did y'all say to each other after it was established she did have school?
She said she did have school. And I believe at that point I said, well, her and Drew are out here in the garage.
And what did she say in response to that?
I believe she said, that's not Drew. Call all the neighbors.
Well, she knew. She was working with different information than what you had.
That's right.
She knew that wasn't true. Because she knew where Drew was. Because she had talked,
That's right.
Holly had talked to Drew that morning. But did you know where Drew was that morning?
I didn't. I assumed that he was turkey hunting somewhere, but I was unsure of where.
All right. That's not Drew. That's what she says. Well, and what happens next?
She called back. I don't remember how much time had passed, but immediately at this time, I could no longer hear the voices. So I left where I was standing and I walked over to the back door, and that's when I saw a male and a female walking towards the woods, and I recognized the female as my sister, and at this time still thought the male was Drew, and he was wearing camouflage.
Could you see his face?
No, I couldn't see either of their faces.
Were they just a few feet from you, or they maybe
They were several feet from where I was.
say several? In fact, later on, we're going to skip forward and come back to this minute and have you tell the rest of the story. But later on, the TBI get with you in that house, have you look out into that yard and have people stand there as if they were this man and as if they were Holly. I think it's actually have your mom because she's the same height. Did that happen?
It did. We did that.
Let me have you look at this picture. Tell me if you recognize that.
I do.
All right. What is
That is a viewpoint from the back door of our house up towards the woods where I last saw them walking.
okay? And in fact, is this a picture from that? I guess you can call it a demonstration
Yes.
where you were standing at this window, telling them where to be, so that everybody could see what you saw.
It is.
I'd offer this as an excellent. The shot back window you're talking about?
It is.
So you'd be standing inside the house right here at this back window, right?
That's the back door.
All right. After you heard the voices, and now you finally see something. Is that right?
That's right.
A figure here.
Yes.
It's impossible to see if these lights on, but this exhibit will be passed around. But a figure here.
Then,
Let's try it. This seems a little bit better. The figure here. Is that right?
That's right.
And if we looked a little bit closer at this picture, we'd see the figure's wearing camouflage. Can you tell that from where you are right now?
Yes.
And then a figure right here, the pink shirt, like Holly was wearing.
picture up there.
That's right.
That's better. So here's a first figure with camouflage. And here's the second in blue jeans and a pink shirt. That's actually your mom,
Yes.
but for this demonstration playing the role of Holly. Is that right?
That's right.
Is this the view that you got that morning? The flash that you got of that man in camo?
It
Your
is.
sister?
It is.
You told us before that you were several feet away, but that's, to me, that's more than several feet.
It's quite a ways.
It's all the way across your backyard.
Right.
This is the tree line, right?
That's right.
The playground area that your dad built and everything for y'all, that would be out this way, right?
Yes, it's just to the right of where they're standing.
That detached garage would be way over here, right?
That's right.
So this is as much as you saw of the man in camo.
Yes.
Your sister.
That's right.
What are you thinking when you saw that? What are you thinking that morning when you saw that? When you had a flash like this from all these feet away of the man and your sister?
Well, at that time I thought, why is Holly wearing a pink shirt if they're walking into the woods? Obviously he's wearing camouflage and she has on a pink shirt.
Did you think they were going hunting or something?
Well, I was unsure. I thought it's a possibility.
Is any of this stuff making sense to you?
Not really.
Did you still think that person could be Drew?
It was at this time that his size seemed to be, he seemed to be larger than Drew.
When you say larger, what do you mean? You mean taller? You mean stockier? You mean both? What do you mean?
Wider and heavier, stockier.
This flash from all these feet away across this yard, you say he looks heavier, stockier, wider
Yes,
than Drew.
that's right.
So what were you thinking when you noticed that difference?
It occurred to me at that time, I thought, no, that's not Drew, that's Richie.
And who's Richie?
Richie is our cousin.
All right. Other than Richie, because you didn't see the face,
That's right.
but you're going on like thought checking.
Yes,
Were you still trying to make sense of what you were hearing and what you were seeing?
yes.
It doesn't sound like you're doing a very good job of it, though.
No, I was
Right.
I was very confused.
Where did they go?
The last I seen them was about at the spot where they're standing in that picture.
Off into the woods.
I didn't see them enter the woods, but that's about the last view that I saw of them.
Why didn't you see him enter the woods?
I'm unsure. It could have been that second phone call from my mom came in at that time, and I looked down at the phone. I'm really unsure as to why I didn't see them enter the woods.
Or into the woods, see them anymore.
That's right.
Is there anything in those woods behind your house?
Yes, there's a trail just in front of where they're walking, and that trail leads up to an old logging road.
Yeah, there's actually a road that's, I don't know how many yards would you say it's off into those woods.
From the trail to the logging road,
From where they're standing right there to the logging road.
probably going to be about 8 to 10 steps.
8 to 10 steps till you get to the trail.
The entrance to the trail, and then
And how long down the trail to the logging?
I think that we walked it, and it was about 60 yards from the trail entrance to the logging road.
So about 70 or 80 yards into these woods, you get to the logging road.
That's right.
That you can have a vehicle and you can take off driving.
Yes.
What do you do when you see him disappear into the woods?
Well, I talked to my mom again on the phone. She called me back.
And how she acted?
She's panicked at this point.
Panic. And what did she tell him?
She said, "Oh my God, Clint, that's not Drew. Get a gun and shoot him."
That's not Drew. Get a gun and shoot him.
That's right.
You've woken up to something. Voices, flash of this, your mama yelling at you to get a gun and shoot somebody.
Right.
What do you do?
Well, I didn't do that. Was still thinking that it's either Drew or it's Richie. There's no reason for me to get a gun and shoot. I wouldn't shoot Drew. I wouldn't shoot Richie. I have not seen anything to indicate that I need to be trying to shoot anyone. So I didn't do that.
What did you do?
I think it was at this point that was at the back door, or I went back to the back door. I think I was already standing there, but I opened the door up, I guess just to listen, or I'm not sure what I was about to do, go outside, I guess. And then I felt how cold it was that morning, and I was still in my pajamas. So I come back and
So let me interrupt you. We can tell at this point in the morning that you're confused.
yeah,
Would you admit that?
yes,
Confused by what you heard, what you assumed, and then later what you saw.
yes,
Would you admit that you're also kind of scared of what was going on?
just unsure.
So you open that door, and you don't run out and chase these two people into the woods, do you?
No.
What do you do?
I opened the door and I felt how cold it was, and I realized I'm in my pajamas, so I went and put on some pants and a jacket and some socks and a pair of shoes, and then went out the back door.
Gun or no gun?
No, I also went and grabbed the .38 Colt revolver before I went out the door, and I also had my cell phone.
Got dressed, got a phone, you got a gun. Now what are you going to do?
I guess I'm going to go and look and walk up to the logging road to see if I can see them or hear them.
What do you?
I walk out and then I look to my left where they were knelt down under that window, and there's a pool of blood in the garage.
There's a garage and there's a carport.
Carport.
Which one is it?
It's a carport attached to the house.
It's the one that you were lifting up that blind and peeking into, right?
That's right.
And you were seeing the silhouettes of your sister and somebody.
Yes.
And there's a pool of blood.
Yes, just below where they were knelt down.
So what are you thinking at this point?
I'm even more confused, because I'm thinking now, if it is Drew or if it is Richie, they've killed a turkey, they've brought it up here to the house and laid it on the carport, and it's been bleeding, and
You're still not thinking that some man or some men came to your house that morning and abducted your sister and dragged her off in the woods.
absolutely not.
Had that even crossed your mind at all?
No.
If that had crossed your mind, what would you have done?
The situation would have been much different. I would have probably not called anyone. I would just got a gun and tried to kill the person that was with my sister. It would have been either him.
Inside with the gun and your phone, and now you're dressed. What do you see? Other than the pool of blood after that.
Okay. I will go ahead and close the back door, and I'll walk across the deck because obviously I don't want to walk down into the garage. So I take a right and I walk across the back deck and into the driveway, and I make a left, and I walk up through the backyard up to the entrance of that trail.
Sort of like over to the left of that playground structure.
That's right.
To the edge of where they walked in.
Yes.
And what'd you see?
I stopped walking just in front of where they are in that photograph at the wood line.
Why'd you stop?
And I was just looking and listening, and I didn't see or hear anything. In fact, it was unusually quiet. I didn't hear any birds chirping. Wind wasn't blowing.
It's just real quiet.
Just
no man in camouflage anymore.
Right.
No voices anymore. No hollering anymore.
Right.
How long do you sit there or stand there listening and looking?
I stood there for maybe like 30 seconds, and then I heard a vehicle coming up our driveway.
Okay. What happened then?
Well, I recognized the vehicle as Kathy Wise's Ford pickup truck.
All right. Who's Kathy Wise?
She was our neighbor at that time.
If you're looking at the front of your house, they live off to the right. So
That's right. That's right.
Kathy and James Barnes,
Yes.
his girlfriend or ex-wife, whatever.
I was unsure, but
What'd you think when you saw Kathy Wise's truck driving?
well, I was still very confused because she never comes up to the house.
That's not something that normally happens.
Right.
But maybe it's something that could explain what was going on.
Yeah.
So did you talk to her?
Yeah, she parked her truck, and then she got out, approached me, and she saw I had a revolver in one hand and cell phone in the other hand, so I was holding both the objects up. Well, I put the barrel of the revolver in my pocket just to indicate that I don't intend any harm with the gun. And then she walks up and approaches me closer, and she says, "What's going on up here? My husband, Ed, heard screams about 15 or 20 minutes ago."
And Ed, same thing as James Barnes.
Well, Ed is actually Kathy Wise's husband, as far as I know.
But somebody had heard screams?
Yes.
What'd you say?
I didn't say I don't think I said anything back to her at that time. I had my cell phone, and then it was at that point that I went ahead and called 911.
All right. So at this point, we had heard voices. We'd seen a flash of a man in camouflage. Her sister, through the woods, drops her blood in the carpet.
Yes.
And now the neighbor talking about a scream.
Yes. Which was new information to me.
Had you ever heard a scream?
No.
And so now what do?
I'll go ahead and call 911 as my mom had instructed me to do earlier.
Your mom had instructed you earlier to go out there and shoot whoever it was, right?
Right.
Your mom had instructed you earlier to call 911, call all the neighbors.
That's right.
But now you do.
Yes.
As you're talking to 911, does anybody else arrive?
I'm on the phone with 911, and they actually, what happened was I called 911 and it went to Henderson County. Well, we lived in Decatur County. So they said, hold on the line and I'll transfer you to Decatur County. So hold on the line briefly, and then they transferred me to Decatur County, and I talked to the individual in Decatur County. Tried to explain, I guess I've tried to explain what.
Explain something.
Right, basically.
What did you tell me?
I was still very confused at this point. I believe I told him that I thought that my sister was missing.
Did you tell him that you had thought that she was with her boyfriend, Drew?
I don't remember going into any of those details.
While you're on the phone with 911, other police arrive. Is that right?
Yes, they must have already been dispatched because I was on the phone with 911 briefly, and then I heard an engine of the car speeding toward our house.
Policemen get out?
Police car pulled up, and a deputy got out, asked me what's going on.
Did you tell him?
Yes, I think I told him what I had saw and what I had heard that morning, and he told me that he needed me to write out a statement. And so he handed me a statement, and I don't remember him handing me an ink pen or a pencil, and I don't remember him handing me anything to lay the statement on to write it, just a piece of paper. Yeah.
He says, write down what you just told me.
Yeah, so I went back to his patrol car and laid the paper on his hood and asked for an ink pen, and I started writing my statement.
All right. So you started writing your statement about what you saw that morning.
That's right.
But other people started coming.
Yes. This
More-
was...
more police?
Yes. Another Decatur County... This was a Decatur County officer that arrived first. Another Decatur County officer arrived, who is someone that I know. He arrived, got out, asked me what happened, kind of the same scenario.
Talk to him.
Yeah, briefly.
How about your mom and Miss Brumley? Did they get there?
I remember my mom and Miss Cherry Brumley arriving shortly after the second deputy.
And tell us about your mom.
They got out of the car or the vehicle, and then my mom approached me, and I think that she grabbed me by both arms and kind of shook me and said, "Why didn't you do something?" Very upset.
You understand she was just upset.
Yes.
Or what'd you say?
I don't think I said anything at that point.
And then more police?
Yes.
How about people from the community? They start showing up?
Yes, a deputy from Henderson County, I believe, showed up next. And I'm not familiar with the exact order, but policemen continued to show up. People from the community started showing up in large numbers, and everyone that showed up walked up to me and asked me what happened. And I would try to go through just briefly, what I saw and heard, and I was unable to write my statement because of all of the people coming up and talking to me. So I decided that I would stop writing the statement on the hood of the patrol car, and I would get in the back of the patrol car and try to write my statement there. So that's what I did.
She was gone.
Yes.
She never came back.
Right.
Your mom told us how she searched, and your dad told us how he searched.
Yes.
How about you?
I searched with them as well.
It's changed your mom's life and your dad's life. Did it change yours?
Yes.
Did you ever know Zach Adams?
Not until after this happened.
I'm talking about as of April 13th, 2011.
No, I
I didn't know Zach Adams.
No, I did not.
Did you know Shane Austin?
No, I did not.
Did you know Dylan Adams?
I knew of Dylan Adams. I think I had seen Dylan Adams at my grandmother's house on possibly one or two occasions.
Did you ever hung out with him?
No.
Under what circumstances would he have been at your grandmother's house?
He was friends with my cousin Brent Carnett.
Did you know Jason Autry?
No.
But since April 13th, 2011, have you seen him? All four of those people?
Yes.
Your mom told us how y'all went and interviewed,
We did.
right?
We did.
Now, as that man's walking into the woods there, and you're noticing that he's wider or stocky or whatever it is than your cousin Richie. Oh, no.
Then Drew.
Than Drew.
Yes.
That he's about the same size as your cousin
Yes.
Richie. Would you agree with me that, well, what height and weight would you assign that to?
The man that I saw I would describe as about 5'10", 5'11" in height and about 200 pounds in weight.
Would you agree with me that that is not the same physical size or stature of Zach Adams?
I would.
That is not, correct?
That is not.
That's not the same size because he's real tall of Jason Autry. Is that correct?
That's correct.
How about Shane Austin?
When I first seen Shane Austin, that does fit the description of size and weight of Shane Austin.
Do you know if the male voice you heard in the garage is the same person as the camouflage man?
That is something that stood out to me because the voice I heard in the garage sounded a certain way, and then the man that I saw walking away with Holly looked a certain way, and I don't know if anyone would understand this, but the voice didn't match the body type.
You don't know how many people were out there, do you?
I don't.
At least one.
Yes.
But the voice could have been a different voice.
It could have been.
There could have been people you didn't see and you didn't hear.
That's right.
But you're here today telling us what you heard and what you saw.
That's correct.
And you've given this account. A lot of people have asked you to tell them what you saw and what you heard.
Yes, many times.
In fact, would you acknowledge that there have been some conversations between you and TBI and law enforcement?
There have been.
They've confronted you, correct?
They have.
They've told you we don't understand why you didn't go out there.
Definitely.
They told you they're frustrated that you couldn't identify the person.
Yes,
But you always told the truth.
I am.
Do you regret what you didn't do that morning?
Yes, I do.
If you had had more information, if you had known for certain that Drew was out hunting, if you had recognized that voice as a stranger's, if you had seen not just a man walking in the woods, but another man and another, what would you have done?
I would say that everything would be different and we wouldn't be here today.
But that's something you live with, right?
If I had had more information, I would have definitely reacted to the situation differently.
Says you love your sister?
Yes.
Mr. Bobo, My name is Jennifer Thompson, and I represent Zach Adams.
Okay.
I'd like to ask you a few questions this
Okay.
afternoon. You've given multiple statements in this case,
I have.
and you gave a statement on the same day that your sister disappeared,
I did.
or multiple statements, actually.
Several statements that day.
One of the statements you gave was to FBI Special Agent Art Viveros. Do you remember Mr. Viveros?
Yes.
And so that was a statement that you made very close in time to when the event occurred.
I don't
When
recall.
your sister disappeared.
Yes, I don't recall the time of that, but I did sit down and talk to Mr. Arthur that morning just after my sister was taken.
And at that time, you said that initially you had received a call at 7:33 in the morning from Chad Marshall. Do you remember?
I remember Chad calling that morning. I don't remember the exact time, but I was asleep, and I just simply picked my phone up and silenced the call and went back to sleep.
Okay. And it wasn't until about 7:40 that you woke up because your indoor dog was barking.
Sometime around that time, that's correct.
Yes. And you were up for a few minutes. You said you were up for about 10 minutes when you heard the voices from the carport. Do you remember saying that?
Not really.
Okay. You told him that at first you thought people were trying to break into your house.
I don't remember telling anyone that.
Okay. Do you remember telling him that you walked to the windows that face the carport? You pushed out the Venetian blinds. You pushed them open and observed two people squatting down.
I do.
Okay. You could only see the tops of their heads. Is that right?
The tops of their heads and maybe the top part or portion of their shoulder, I think is what I told them.
Okay. And the female had blonde hair,
Yes.
but you weren't sure who they were because you couldn't see their faces.
Right.
One of them sounded male and seemed to be giving orders to the female.
That's right.
They both sounded white.
Yes.
By that, I'm assuming you're just talking about kind of the intonation in their voices.
Yeah, Mr. Arthur and some of the other FBI agents and TBI agents asked me if I knew the ethnicity of the person that I heard.
The female seemed to be agreeing with what the man was telling her to do.
That's right.
Okay. And you thought it was Holly, but it didn't quite sound like her.
I don't remember saying that.
Okay. And you assumed at that time that the male must have been Holly's boyfriend.
Yes, I did.
Even though you didn't go outside, it was an odd enough situation that you called your mother.
Yes.
Okay. And then when you couldn't reach her, you texted her.
That's right.
When you couldn't hear the voices outside any longer, that's when you looked out the kitchen window and saw people walking towards the woods. Isn't that right?
The kitchen door, that's correct.
Okay. Okay, the glass window in the kitchen. If you said glass window in the kitchen, you would have meant the door with a window in it.
That's right.
Okay. And as you looked at the woman, it looked like the size and shape of Holly. Is that right?
That's correct.
And do you remember what she was wearing?
She was wearing a pink t-shirt and blue jeans.
Okay. And again, you assumed still at that point that the male was Drew.
I did.
Drew Scott, the boyfriend. And you thought that the reason that they were going into the woods was because Drew had shot a turkey and he was taking Holly to go see a turkey.
I thought that was a possibility at that time, yes.
Okay. And so there was nothing about the way they were walking that alarmed you at that time.
That is correct.
There were some, perhaps, reports that she was being dragged into the woods, but you didn't see any evidence that she was being dragged into the woods.
That's right, and those reports were false.
If you had seen your sister being dragged into the woods, you would have jumped into action.
That's correct.
Okay. And the man, you said, had camouflage pants, a camouflage shirt, and a hat.
To the best of my memory, I think that he had on a lot of camouflage. I know I reported full camouflage, but he did have on camouflage.
Okay. Do you happen to remember what the camouflage pattern was?
At first, I remember it appeared to be Mossy Oak Breakup.
Okay. Because actually there's different companies. Mossy Oak is a company of camouflage, and each company has different camouflage patterns that they use.
Right.
Okay. And Mossy Oak, you said Mossy Oak Breakup.
That's correct.
And that would be a camouflage pattern you might use if you were going turkey hunting.
That's right.
Okay. And you said at first you thought that. Upon further reflection, did you decide it might be something else?
Yes, I did say that it could have been leafy wear, which is something that turkey hunters wear.
Okay. Was it just that it was too far away for you to really determine?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And you said you thought that you saw in the person's right hand something that looked to you like a turkey call.
Yes, I think I described it as maybe a deer grunt call.
A deer grunt call?
That's right.
And what would that look like?
It's a black pipe, plastic pipe that's about 7 or 8 inches long, and it has like a flexible end on it.
Okay. And how do you make noises with it? Do you move it around?
No, you blow through it.
Okay. So, excuse me just 1 minute. I get nervous too. Okay. And so.
You the light. I'm sorry. Sorry. Don't mouth long enough. Try to mouth it.
No, not there. One sec.
There.
That's good.
All right. Thank you.
Now, that morning, you had parked your car in the garage that day, and that was somewhat unusual. Is that right?
I had backed my pickup truck in the detached garage, and that was somewhat unusual because that parking spot was unavailable for a few months prior to that night.
It had been full with things.
Yes, my dad had a project car that he was working on, and he had the car on one side and parts and tools on the other side.
Okay. So if somebody had been that was the first night you had parked your car in the garage for?
That's right.
So if somebody had been observing the house, on other occasions, they would have seen your car outside.
Yes.
And that night, the garage door to the detached garage was closed also, wasn't it?
That's correct.
So you wouldn't have been able to see your truck.
That's right.
Right. So if somebody had been watching your house for a while, they might have assumed that you were not there.
That is a possibility.
And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that spring of 2011, you were gone before Holly in the morning. Isn't that right?
On some days I was.
Yes. Now, do you remember also telling law enforcement that the person's hair, that you could see the man had dark hair sticking out from under his cap?
At some point in time, I do. Yes, remember that.
And you had said that the dark hair was long enough that it appeared to be touching the man's collar or down on his collar.
To cover his neck. That's
to actually cover his neck even.
Yes.
Okay. And then, in fact, you had also described the man's voice.
Yes.
You described it as a very deep, low voice.
Yes.
Didn't you? Okay. And at some point, Terry Dicus brought you voice samples of different people's voices.
He did.
And you were able to narrow the voice samples down to 2 different voices.
I believe that's correct.
And to you, the 2 samples of voices sounded identical.
Yes, they sounded very similar.
You couldn't distinguish one man's voice from the other.
Yes.
Okay. And one of those men's voices was Terry Britt's voice, wasn't it?
That's what the TBI indicated, yes.
Okay. At some point along the line, you retained an attorney to represent you, didn't you?
Yes. As well, he was a family. We attained an attorney to represent our family, to give us some family guidance, because our family's never really been involved in any kind of court issues.
Yes. And it was a new and different situation to you.
Yes.
But he actually accompanied you when you were questioned by law enforcement, didn't he?
He later did.
Yes. And law enforcement put great pressure on you to change your story, didn't they?
They did.
They continually accused you of lying.
Yes.
And they continually said that you were somehow holding back on some kind of information.
Withholding information, yes.
And they again stressed again and again that they would never be able to solve the crime unless you would come forward and tell everything you know.
That's correct. To me, that meant that I was the one that could solve the crime.
Right. And you can't solve this crime, can you? No.
No.
I mean, it wouldn't have mattered to you in this situation if in the beginning you had told some kind of fib. In order to get your sister back, you would have admitted to that right away, wouldn't you have?
Admitted to if I had previously lied?
If you had previously lied or if you had been confused initially.
Yes, I would have admitted the truth, yes.
You would have done anything to get your sister back, wouldn't you have?
I would not have lied.
No, but you would have admitted fault on your own.
Oh, yes.
You would not have tried to protect yourself and kept yourself from getting in trouble if it meant hindering the search for your sister, would you?
That's correct.
If I can have 1 moment. No further questions.
Anything else?
Just about law enforcement pressuring you to like change your statement or something. Do you understand the difference between somebody confronting you about what you said?
I do.
About telling you that if it was them, they would have rushed out there and either they'd be dead or that man would be dead.
I heard something like that numerous times. Yes.
Again and again, they confronted you with that.
Yes.
And again, you've told them the truth.
Yes. All that I know.
And every time you tell them what they know, what does law enforcement do? They
Seems
write
like-
it down.
Yes.
They write it down. They ever try to change what you're saying?
No, they didn't change what I was saying. They just wanted me to add more and give them more and give them more.
They're doing their job.
Yeah.
They confronted you and confronted you and confronted you. And then they wrote down or wrote memos or recorded or whatever it was every time what you said.
Yes.
They never made up lies that you said.
No.
They never had you sign statements that weren't true.
No.
You saw a black, what'd you call it again? I don't very much. Would
The
just be in
object-
his hand?
The object in his hand. It appeared to be a deer grunt call.
Because it was black?
It was black and it looked like it was just kind of a matte black and it looked like it was about 7 or 8 inches long, like a pipe or a tube.
Did you make any assumptions that's what it was because he was in camouflage and he was walking in the woods?
Yes. I believe that's, and of course, he was a pretty good ways away from me as well.
Very good ways. You saw,
Yeah,
could that have been a gun?
it could have been.
Your Honor, I object to this speculation. I'd ask to strike that.
No, it could have been, he said it could have. That's not speculation. There's no proof. None.
Pass notes.
Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Let's take a recess. We're last Eastman recess. Violence will let me know when everyone's finished resting, and then we'll go a little further into the evening yet. Next.
John Babb.